Hi beautiful people, I hope that you are doing well. I can't believe it's end of October. How did that happen? I also have my words of intention for this year here. Trust. I also have my amethyst crystal in here and some rose quartz just to set more intention for this video as well. And I haven't recorded for a while, but I'm actually really happy that I record every time I feel called to record. It's not like something that I feel I need to do. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about something that I've been really contemplating a lot on recently, and it's this idea of creating your own space, creating a third space, a space which is uniquely for yourself, a space which might be unconventional for a lot of other people, but it's where you feel that it's your space. And I'm not just talking about physical space, but the way through which you move in this world. And it's an interesting idea. As a true sociologist, as you might know, there is this idea from sociologist Bhabha, I think it's Bhabha, I will link it down below, called a third way or third space, this hybridized identity that a lot of people, especially diaspora, that were migrating and moving around, created to make sense of the world. But it's also the way in which people from different spiritual practices, or witches or women who kind of didn't identify with one or the other, just created their own way of being and communicating and living through the space and through the world, which scared people. And I've been contemplating on why are we so scared of the unknown, of kind of like the in-between space. And it's really interesting because I actually listened to a podcast today, Caggie's podcast, Saturn Returns, and it was a podcast I think 2 years ago, talking about belonging, and she had an amazing guest there. Again, I will link it down below. And she described herself as like this modern witch, meaning that she lives in this space in between and she's not afraid to belong anywhere and nowhere. I don't know if you guys heard or read a book by Brené. I have it here, called Braving the Wilderness. It's one of my favorite books. It's such a nice read. Brené studies and researches vulnerability, courage, leadership, like a true authentic leadership, and also what does it mean to have and live authentic life, and what does it mean to be really brave. And one of the things that was coming up in the book, especially at the beginning, is this quote by Maya Angelou. Let me find it somewhere, because I think it's such a nice and interesting way to realize what does it actually mean to belong. So, 1973, Dr. Maya Angelou said, "You are only free when you realize you belong to no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high, the reward is great." And Dr. Brown was really struggling with this because she admires Maya Angelou, like everyone should. And she really was feeling uneasy about the idea that belonging is important. She was wrestling with the idea that belonging is important. People need belonging to feel valued and respected and for their sense of self-worth and community. But at the end of the book, she just kind of takes us through the understanding and revelation and the awareness that actually a true belonging is the idea that you are not afraid to brave the wilderness. And what is the wilderness? Well, the wild has historically represented the untamed women, the untamed people who wanted to go back to nature, to the wilderness, not just externally, but in themselves. And what does it mean to go back to your wilderness? It's the most natural, authentic, intuitive state of your being. And I think patriarchy and the world is scared of untamed, wild, brave women who are not afraid to be themselves, who want to be authentic, and who are expressing this authentic power through being who they are, saying no, not really caring what other people think, but living their truth in the way that they find the most authentic for themselves, which is mostly the third way. You can see there's a lot of things emerging. I mean, I remember when I was studying at uni 2 years ago, the idea of a third space started coming out as students wanted a different space that they go and study, which is not just a library, but more of a coffee shop hybridized with bookshop. So they felt that it's their space. They were looking for ways to belong somewhere, but nowhere. It's really the space itself or what you bring to the space that makes the difference. So it was coffee shops, then people started expressing themselves creatively. It was just this beautiful way, the beautiful news started emerging, which was without the borders. It was breaking the ceilings. There was no binary. The binary was disappearing in gender roles, in all kinds of normative structures that used to be normal before. The boundaries were disappearing and the people started coming back to the wilderness, which is the power that everyone has. It's the nature that we were so afraid for so long, and we felt, and by we I'm referring to the system that we live in, have kind of normalized that actually the wild is bad, the wild is dangerous, that we need to be afraid of the wild and we need to punish the wild. That's what they did with the witches, with the women who used to meet in circles and do sacred ceremonies together. People who still have or are living with nature, with the cycles of the nature. Indigenous people in various communities are being torn apart because there's this idea, this weird, senseless hypocrisy that what is natural or what is as close to the nature as possible needs to be tamed, needs to be controlled. And it is really when we untame ourselves internally that that's going to be represented outwardly and externally. And I just had this revelation that I'm so passionate about this. And it's people like Brené Brown and Glennon Doyle, who has actually written an amazing, incredible book called Untamed. I have it. I lended it to my friend. I hope she's enjoying it. It's this idea of untamed, wild, brave people who unite because they want to live the life that they want, the third way, you know, the way in between, the hybridized way, which I think is so powerful. And I actually came to realize it through my experiences with living in different countries. When I was 18, When I was 17, I actually went to the US for an exchange program. I talk about my exchange journey in my video, you can check it out. And it was this idea of adapting the place where I was kind of at that time, but also carrying another identity with me. So I've just kind of like morphed them together and created my own way of being. And you really see it when someone pointed out that, oh, you're neither that nor that, like what are you? You know, there's people like asking questions like, what are you? I live in the UK now, and people constantly keep asking me like, oh, your English is so good, like where are you from? But originally, where are you from? And I think people have good intentions, and you know, people are trying to be curious, and curiosity is great, but I'm being misunderstood when I say that I've created my own identity through morphing and just living through different phases of my life, like a butterfly really. Or the fact that I have this like sacred connection with people who have traveled or lived in different countries. There's this silver lining that I can't explain, that because I know how it feels like to be the outsider. I know how it feels like to push yourself every day to try to belong. But actually, at the end of my exchange, I realized like it is exactly what Brené Brown says in her book, that I can belong nowhere but anywhere. But the true belonging is really when I authentically express who I am, and it doesn't matter what language I speak, it doesn't matter where I am currently living or what job I'm doing. I can create that space wherever I take myself with me, which is everywhere I go. And I'm just so excited to put this out there, because I think a lot of people can find this really liberating, because the idea of belonging, the idea of identity is so important. It's morphed into us, who we are, whether we want to belong to this group or the other group, and we feel like we cannot be in between because we just feel pulled apart by both parties somehow, that someone's always asking for your attention. But actually, it's your own way of becoming is to live in the space in between. That's mostly where the uncertainty is at the beginning, but you can really find a comfort in feeling that you can belong anywhere but nowhere at the same time. Again, I'm so passionate about this. I feel like it was kind of like the missing piece to my own spiritual journey, the idea of in-betweenness, the idea of hybridity, the idea of braving the wilderness, the untamed version of myself. And I am just so ready to be in the arena. That is another quote by Brené Brown that she is using a lot. It's not originally her quote, it's actually Theodore Roosevelt who said something along the line that if you're not in the arena, I'm not interested in your feedback. The people who are in the arena are the ones living their truth and life and trying their best, trying to be as authentic, as brave as possible. And that spiritual life is everyone's spiritual journey. Everyone goes through trials and tribulations, and I think this pandemic has really shown that people want a different way of living and being, and because it wasn't being offered before, people are starting to relearn and unlearn and then relearn new ways of being and creating their own version of who they are. I mean, even if I look at my spiritual practice, how it's evolved from very doctrine, religious, one way of looking at the world through the Christian lens, very like Protestant Christian lens, to exploring the mysticism of all religions, and how that has enabled me to understand that we are all connected and there is no one way. The only way is your way, the way you create it, because your life is so so individual and so unique. So your own life is kind of like a spiritual unfolding. And for me, I found a resonance with this female collective conscious identity, these circles and sisterhood, and the idea of trying to carry things together. I love yoga, and meditation has changed my life. People like Brené and Glennon Doyle, who have gone through crazy amount of really difficult stuff, but who are not afraid to talk about it and sugarcoat things anymore, and who show as they are in their full strength and power without caring what other people think. Those are my heroes. People who are in the arena, people who are untaming themselves by educating themselves, by being aware, by wanting to be better, and for doing the work. And I just feel so blessed that I have this awareness that I feel my inside is connecting to my outside. Like, I don't feel I'm wearing the mask anymore as much as I used to. There's not as much people pleasing. There's not as much asking for people's opinions. There's just this morphing of the inside and the outside, and I feel I'm untaming myself. I feel more empowered and excited, and I feel like I want to create the life that I want, and I don't care what other people think. And we go through stages in life, and I think it's important to understand that everyone's journey is so different and unique. And I feel so strongly that the only person you can really trust 100% at the end of the day is yourself, in the way that when you make a decision and you've already decided, you've created a decision in yourself, you thought about it. So don't ask a lot of people for advice, because why? You come to yourself and to the understanding, and you do the life decision based on what you know and based on the understanding that you have right now. So have that understanding, have that awareness, have that self-trust, and decide based on that. And a lot of journaling is a part of a good spiritual practice for me. And then reading books and just looking at people's lives, and also understand that life is messy and beautiful at the same time, and then everything can come together, and that you can have it all, but it takes time, and that's okay. And that your art, your life, the way it's unfolding, the way it's bringing you the understanding that you need to hear, it's art. You are art, because there was no one like you, and there will never be anyone like you. I mean, how cool is that? And yes, you're all spiritual beings, and we're all witches in some way. It's only a word, but if the word represents who you really are in your true essence, adopt that instead of the identity that's been put by your country or your citizenship or your religion or somebody else, or somebody else's expectation of who you're supposed to be. Because you are unique, and I'm unique. And even when I say it, I feel like I don't fully believe it yet, but I know in my body, in my soul, that it's true. And I'm not afraid to show myself anymore as I am. And the right people will come. The right people will be surrounded by the presence of that which I call my third space now. And it's my unique individuality. The way I move through the world, the way I see, the way I speak. Everything is morphing together to create a new version of me. It is like a metamorphosis. It's like a butterfly, it's emerging, but you need to create a space for the butterfly to come, because otherwise it's gonna be stuck inside, and you need to allow it to grow. It went a bit poetic right now, but that's just how energy moves, and it flows in different directions, and it wants to express itself in one way and then the other way. And just wanting to say that the only way to go through the struggles, through life, is to go through it. Sometimes that's difficult, but I can tell you that your butterfly is emerging. Everyone has their time to create, because you are creative. You are already a piece of art. So whatever is emerging, whether it's the job that you're doing or the art, like a drawing that you're creating, it's all part of the creative process for you. And I love you.